Hi, this is the One True Divine Feminine and Psychic Investigations Tarot and Astrology site. And yes, I am the woman who solved my own crime using tarot cards and astrology. So I know there are some of you out there that know that I'm onto something with astrology, right? That you can see things. And actually, there's a lot of us that are onto it. It's just that the world hasn't woken up to it yet because people haven't recognized what a great spiritual tool it can be, and one for doing good things in the world. And that's all it was ever meant for, was to help provide spiritual wisdom to people, help to plot a good course, help people overcome traumas and turmoils. It was only ever meant to do good in the world, in my opinion. So if you harness it for anything else, you're kind of going against the grain of that tool. Now, because you know I'm onto something, we're going to use some of the astrology to learn about what's going on. And if I repeat things, I do it because I know a lot of people are new to astrology and I want people to be able to understand. But we had recently on November 8th an eclipse that is going to impact us for 6 months to a year, or possibly even 2 years. And it happened on November 8th. And because of that eclipse and the signs and placements in the chart that it was in, we can potentially expect problems with banking systems, the need to reform banking laws, also cryptocurrency laws, because a lot of crimes or criminals are using that system to subvert the regular system. And we know that from the 2016 election hack. It's also because, at least in my chart, it was in the second house, some of it is to refine our inner resources. People think of the second house as the house of earned income, but in truth, it is about your resources. Money often is the least of that. It is what do you have inside of you. We also have to begin to ask ourselves as a nation, what do we have inside of us? What is our value system? Now, with this kind of turmoil, with the square that we had, right, with Saturn squaring off to things, we can expect volatility in stock markets over the next 6 months or so. We can expect upsets to families because the Saturn was square with the moon. We can see friction between old ideas and new ideas trying to be born onto the world stage. And we had, Saturn in Capricorn, right? So that's where the rules and the structures, and we want the laws and this and that. And on the other side, we had the moon, right, in the North Node. And they were in Taurus. And so this is where the friction or rub comes in. Both Capricorn and Taurus are earth signs. So this could also show up in the form of volatility to some of our earth-based systems. With climate change right now, we are literally collapsing ecological structures that drive the very machinations of how our planet runs. So we are breaking those down with the ocean conveyor belt, all of that stuff right now. And we could also expect with this eclipse to start to feel more earthquakes and tremors around the world in the next 6 months. So we do have this kind of volatility running in the background. And that square, even though it's separating and Uranus is gaining ground, we still have that energy with us for months yet to come. Now, why do I think it's important for us to talk about these things as well as the Pluto return? I think it's important because what happened to me happened to my country. My chart is very similar to that of the United States. So we are at a point where we have kind of brought in a storm in our country. We've brought in chaotic energy. People are reaching out hands everywhere, trying to grasp onto ideas and solutions of what needs to happen, because it's like we're in a cyclone or a turmoil. So just as the earth is going through that turmoil, so is our country. And the goal, of course, is to get ourselves in a more upright position. We're in more beautiful energy, right? Because right now we're not in beautiful energy. We do need to transform things. And part of that is a need to heal the trauma that we've had, right? And that comes down to looking at not only our individual value systems, but our value system as a nation. Why? Because in the US chart, Pluto falls into that second house, which rules the things we value. So I would like us to see how we transform our attitudes towards women, um, how we treat women. What things do we place on high? Right now, we place money and greed above everything else, and that is driving our system literally into the ground. Now, also, I sense that we have a lot of people, and it's true with Pluto and Capricorn. It is about wanting to bring God down to earth. And I do understand that. We all need God in our lives more now than we ever have because the world is so chaotic. But with Pluto and Capricorn, it's trying to bring things down in a forced fashion with hierarchies and rules and regulations. And this is what we're going to force and do and da da da. And what this isn't taking into account for in a democratic society is that we all come to the divine in our own fashion, right? So we each get that spark of inspiration in our own unique way. And here you can really see that. You can see the sparks lighting up everybody's head. Everybody has a different path. How do we become more enlightened in our unique fashion? So I think a lot of people would like to see God come down to earth, spiritual people as well as religious people. But we have a different idea of how that's going to happen. And so we have to find a way that we can make this work for everybody as we move forward. And, with Capricorn, there's a tendency to want to force things, and it's big industry, big religion versus individual freedoms and unique paths to God. I think that's where some of that rub of that square is coming in. Now, our country was established, well, I tend to think of it as 1776, right? With the writing of the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution in Philadelphia. And we did this by creating a lot of turmoil in the country. Why? Because Pluto has a lot to do with our country. And it's very important that we get this because this is driving what's happening in our country right now, whether you realize it or not. So Pluto has a lot to do with decay, with corruption, with the underbelly of society, destruction, nuclear disasters, plagues, debts, deficits, trauma, and thank goodness, transformation, right? So our country was born out of difficulty, and the cycle of Pluto is coming back to its natal resting place right now. We're in the process of it. 2022 to 2024 are pivotal, but I think the energy will last for a decade, even beyond that. And Pluto can also be the great revealer because it can literally drag us to our knees. It's a very powerful planet because of the corruption it tends to represent, and because of the need to transform things like these systems that are breaking down due to corruption and greed that are no longer working, and God sees all of that, right? We are now, because of what happened to our country and also to me, we're bringing the great fire of transformation, and the towers, I believe, are going to fall, but not in a bad way. This only happens if we do it consciously in a good way, and that means we clean up the greed, we clean up the corruption, we fix the laws that are not working, and we start to birth better things. And if we don't, this Pluto is going to drag us through the worst cesspool that you can imagine. So we need to harness this energy and consciously steer the beast, right? Because the other thing that Pluto, which is so prominent in our chart, has to do with is taboos, secrets that we bury. Also has to do a lot with your soul. So hypnotherapy, soul retrieval. So it's like we're searching for the soul of our country, and even things that are buried deep within the earth like oil. So Pluto has a lot to do with all of this. Control and power issues are also very prominent with Pluto in Capricorn. And in our country's chart, it resides at 27 degrees of Capricorn. Now, what I like about that symbol, Sabian symbol, is that it has to do with us breaking away from all this devilish energy, these things that are binding us, the greed, the corruption, the systems that are no longer serving humanity, though we keep them in place, right? And instead, we are trying to use this like cleansing fire and pull up the things that are hidden, shine some light on those situations so that we can gain a higher perspective for our nation once again. And so the symbol is all about taking a mountain journey, climbing up to the top of the mountain. So it's like a pilgrimage, it's a quest that we're on right now. And the quest is to overcome obstacles to go up to the mountain shrine. That's literally the symbology of 27 degrees of Capricorn. So right now, our quest should be to find a better, more decent, and higher version of ourselves and our country. And that means us individually as well as our nation. Instead of being stuck down here, we need to come up and take a higher perspective and find a path that works for everybody. Again, I spent 6 years of my life to hit the pause button. Don't waste it, right? Don't waste it, because Pluto is an extraordinarily powerful planet. And it's been formative, not only the beginning of our country, but it is still playing a role in the history of our country, very much so today. And since it is in the second house of our nation's chart in Capricorn, it has so much to do with big business, big money, big banking, laws, structures, corruption, trauma, and also the things we value. And because it also has everything to do with transformation, this is the key part. You heard all the bad things, the transformation. We are being called to transform all of those things that are not serving us well as humanity, right? So we are going to hit a peak of this Pluto return right now, 2022 to 2024. And that's why we've been going through all the crazy, tumultuous energy. And what we really need to do is to draw on spirit, right? Pull in our higher wisdom so that we can birth a new country. And the reason we all, no matter how we draw in the divine, whether it's meditation, yoga, prayer, church, we need to use our higher consciousness, drawing in this spiritual energy so that we can plot a positive course for the next 248 years. We are the crazy stuff we've gone through in the United States in the last few years is all because of this Pluto return energy. And we are being called to use our higher wisdom to consciously deal with the corruption. And if we don't, what we're going to get are more scams. We're setting the course for the next 248 years. This is what we need to remember as we move forward. So if we value corruption, we're going to get a lot more of it. If we value trafficking women and children, expect more exploitation for money. If we value corruption and abuses of power, we are going to see more atrocities like the ones that we have seen recently. Now, Pluto is an extraordinarily powerful, powerful planet, right? But we're really truly being called on right now to bring in healing waters over all of these things that are not working so that we can cool the tempers, right? And draw on inner wisdom to transform where we are. And I will say, Pluto it's a small dwarf planet, but it's an extremely powerful planet in astrology. And it's a mover and a shaker. During 9/11, Pluto was sitting at 12 degrees of Sagittarius, opposite Gemini at 14 degrees. And the symbology for that 12 degrees of Sagittarius is a flag that turns into an eagle. So it's very symbolic for the United States. And that eagle soars following a major trauma. Now, the attack, of course, we remember, was on the Twin Towers. What does Gemini represent? It's the sign of the twins. And at 14 degrees Gemini, it's all about bridging the separation and limitations of the mind and spirit and of different cultures so we can understand each other better. It literally showed up as a lesson of needing to have one mind as humanity to overcome our cultural differences so we don't cause all of this trauma and chaos one country upon the other. And of course, we experienced it as a literal death, a financial death, and death to many police officers and firemen, right? With the crashing of the planes that hit our towers. But then we took that trauma and we returned it 10 times over to the people that had done it to us in retribution. So both sides suffered a physical death as a result. But this also represents our ability to transform how we deal with different countries and different religious systems. So we don't end up in cycles, karmic cycles of endless wars and fighting and crusades trying to kill each other off of the planet. We have the ability to overcome the storm. Now, other examples that we've had of Pluto and hard angle to Saturn, and here we have a hard angle. Saturn, here's a ruler who's like upside down on his head, right? So he's not in his best fashion. This is a man who's lost his path, a corrupt man, somebody who doesn't adhere to the rules and regulations, or just causes turmoil, right, in the workplace. But when these two planets come into a hard configuration, in history, we have had things like confinement, the courage to rise up under extreme circumstances. So that's a good one. We see the extreme power of organizations, some of which are overtaking the power of the people. Also, we saw the beginning of World War I. Whatever it is that Pluto touches, the energy is vastly, vastly intensified. Now, in 2020, we had a very hard aspect with Pluto and Saturn in the second house. And this showed up with people wanting to concretize, to set in stone laws that would favor big business and big oil by making laws more favorable to industry and corporations so that they could gain ever more control and power over things. And this is upside down because it was a literal forceful attempt at placing certain structures and businesses into a better position to control everything. Now, a lot of this was done by placing corrupt officials into place, people who were willing to accept suitcases of money to do anything for the people that had essentially hired them. Not the US population, not the voting people, but the industries because of things like Citizens United, etc. And so, whatever the suitcase of money paid for, well, that's what we got, whether it was good for the people or not. So we have been seeing this kind of corruption popping up with our banking systems, with money laundering, with the cryptocurrency debacles, with Russians literally owning large portions of our banking system. And the only thing these people do with the banking system is to corrupt it and bend it towards their gain, not towards the country's gain where they're owning the stocks. And in California, they've already infested so many banks. And actually, they're doing it all over the world. So we're creating banking laws and things that are favoring industry and not families. So we see things like the housing collapse, right? Because we're not taking care of actual people. Now, we have come full circle because during the revolution, we found monsters to fight in the deep, didn't we? But at that time in 1776, the big monsters that we were going after were the Tories because they had become so corrupt. They were literally tearing us apart. They were creating emotional turmoil in the homeland. They were using the United States as a piggy bank. They were doing things that favored them, but not so much for the colonists. They were promoting the English crown over the local people that they were ruling. So we have returned full circle. This is why we're in the Pluto return. We're experiencing the same kinds of things: the turmoil, the chaos, the mob violence, using humiliation as a tactic to harm people, overthrow plots, shadow government systems working underneath to create change underhandedly, and the like, right? And because we are in this energy, really right now, 2022 to 24, and even a decade beyond, what happens here is either going to come out well for the US and the world, or it could flip us all on our heads. Because what happens here in the next few years is going to rock the world. So we have to deal with the trauma of all of this greed and materialism that's driving things. And we need to find a place of transformation. So here we had the Tories going on their head, the sinking of the old guard, everything going underwater, kicking out the systems that didn't work. Here the Iron Man is upside down. And we said, enough of you. And we did this so that we could bring in evolution, right? We wanted to evolve as a country. Lately, we've been devolving, right? Falling into the same old patterns of corruption that we hit 248 years ago. Now we're being asked to rise like the phoenix, to evolve. Okay. And I've decided myself, I have some things that are just plain old been very hard to heal. I've done a great deal of healing. I'm coming back to myself. There's some things I may have to deal with for the rest of my life. I probably will. And yet I'm being called, no matter how long or hard it takes, to find that spirit within me to overcome the worst tragedies you could face as a woman, right? Which was the selling of my body, right? For money, for four-wheelers, things like that, right? So that, okay, you're getting the idea. Anyhow, it's about coming to a point of rising from the ashes. So we have to heal both individually and as a nation. And I'm doubling down on the healing. Why? Because I don't want rotten, horrible, corrupt people to ruin my soul, my chances, my own evolution. I'm not going to give them that victory. I'm so tough. I'm tougher than you could ever imagine. You just don't know exactly how much shit I got drugged through. But I'm overcoming all of it, baby, and I'm going to keep going. Why? Because my soul is bigger. That's just the truth of it. So I am going to evolve. I am going to overcome. And if we can go through this cathartic process, not only individually, but as a nation, and we choose things wisely, we can set a beautiful tone for the future to come. But if we are not conscious, if we fall into mob violence, tearing down Capitol buildings, smearing poo on the walls, trying to force one system of things onto everybody, whether it works or not, we're going to end up in a worse situation for the next 248 years. So we need to really work on birthing our country anew. And we're going to have to do this by cutting through the crap, right? Here we've got all the storm down here and the things that are binding us and holding us down and causing illusions and murk. And we are going to have to rise up and bring the sword of truth. And we're going to have to clean up the mess that we have created and find a system where the true heart of America can be found once again. Lately, we have become so tarnished by corruption and greed and a value system that literally places money, life insurance policies, homes, four-wheelers, and crap above both God and the sanctity of human life. So I'm calling in the storm, this cathartic storm, because we have to sweep through our value system. What are we currently filling our psyche with? Does it look like a tornado of energy? Does it look like good energy? Right now, we're filling it with porn, with sex trafficking women for objects, using pictures of kids to win court cases, violence, Kill Bill movies, video games that focus on violence and destruction. And kids are on those games for hours and hours and hours of the day. And what are they learning? Violence and destruction. And how do I one up the person next to me? It's like we called in this storm by the things we buy and consume and do and allow. And we have forgotten the sanctity of human life. That's where we are. And I think it's good for us to look so that we can understand what we're doing. We're trading suitcases of money to sell women's crotches. Okay. So if we don't clean that up, we get more of it, right? So we need to clean up where we are so that we can actually look ourselves in the face and realize that we can find some decency and beauty once again. And despite the horrible things that have happened, we have to approach each other with more love and understanding, right? And trying to find the true heart of our country once again. The whole world's watching us right now because a lot of people know we're going through this Pluto return, but we don't have a lot of people that follow astrology in our country. So some of us are pushing through this energy without even knowing what's happening. But we are obviously in the throes of trying to create a new country. And we have to do this with heart by working together with higher wisdom and knowledge, not with coups and plots and mob violence and hurting families. Okay. So we have to find the decency and the true kindness of our hearts to sit down at the table to work together. And I think if we do that, we are going to start to realize that our two-party system right now is causing this, right? It's causing just nothing, right? Because it's just bickering and fighting and turmoil and cesspool and greed and corruption and Christmas cards with AK-47s on it. Think about that. That's not something to laugh about. That's not something to be proud of. It's dark energy. It doesn't feel good, right? It's like where we thought we were going to fill our souls with the material goods and the this and the that. Instead, we find out all the cups are empty. So we have really been chasing a God in this country, but the God has been money. And we're seeing that so clearly. And it's leaving us empty and bereft on so many levels, right? So we need a cathartic system to come through, to sweep through our value system so that we can change things. And part of that is going to have to come by getting rid of the two-party system. We're going to have to use our higher wisdom to bring in this new age. We're going to have to draw on, higher powers and be able to ground that energy down to earth to bring good things to fruition. And my idea, of course, I'm just one person, is that we need territories that are sociologically based because we have different values. I mean, we're many different kinds of people in this country, but we all want what we want, right? But with the two-party system, it's gotten so that we have to lie, cheat, steal, destroy families, and create corruption and everything so that we can get what we want. But if we called in a storm and said, we don't have to do it that way, right? We don't have to have all this corruption, the big lies, the big cheating, the Hitler to get what we want. We can bring the fire, the inspiration, the inner light, the wisdom, and say, maybe it would be better to sit down and talk and find some new way to come forward, right? Something that honors everybody. And in my mind, we need to put less emphasis on the big corporations and more on people. And we have this tendency to do this in our country because of the Pluto placement in our country's chart. But all planets move around. So there's a natal placement, right? And then the planets move. So coming in 2024, Pluto is going to go into Aquarius. And Aquarius is all about humankind, the brotherhood of man, trying to make things work for actual people, bringing in the revolution of science and technology so that it actually works for humanity instead of against humanity. Right now, we have television sets and phones and computers and refrigerators that allow everybody into our homes, right? Criminals, mobsters, people who shouldn't be there. Why? Because it's all about just serving the government, right? But the criminals are using those same pathways to hack people, destroy their lives, stop them from working, all of these things. And in some cases, the corrupt government is allowing the mobsters into the house, right? So we have to get to a point where the science and technology is actually better serving the people. And that is all about what Aquarius is about. So we need to get rid of some of the things that are possessing our souls, right? The greed, the corruption, and we need to find the brotherhood of man, right? Because the evils of big business are literally killing us with climate change. Big pharma is not serving our elderly population well. And then we have politicians who are taking the suitcases of money to work against the very people that hired them. So these are the kinds of things that have to break down and be fixed. Even down to how we create food in this country is not serving us well. So we need systems that honor not only the country, but also people. We need to get rid of this possessive energy of greed, 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 money, money, money at any cost. So what is being called on right now in our country is for us to revolutionize our value system to better serve humanity. Now, that means that we are going to have to act like the Grim Reaper in the next 10 years. Cut out the things that are not working. Get rid of the things that bite us in the night and come back to haunt us. Get rid of the things that have strings attached everywhere you look and are keeping us literally starving to death while working in the matrix. We need a system that actually honors real people. That's what Pluto and Aquarius is going to be about. Now, there are going to be some difficulties with that. It's not going to be easy, but we need to get power back into the hands of the people. Why? Because right now, government's so corrupt, it's not functioning well. We see that with a justice system that can't even deliver justice because the judges are taking buckets of money from mobsters to help with crap. And we have some police officers who put their lives on the line to help me, and we've had other ones that help the very criminals to get into my house. So we need it to get it so that we're curbing the corruption so that people are being better served. Honor and serve and protect. So we have to get rid of, looking at success is only if I get the suitcase of money. Success is when we succeed as human beings, as a nation, not individuals, but when we can look in our backyard and say, we've created a condition that supports humanity, right? Not just the 1%, but all of us, right? Success on all levels for everybody, and put systems in place that help to bring people up from that very bottom layer to more livable situations. We have incipient crime because people can't make a living making $8 an hour or even 10, right? So we need to find a way to get this message out, right? That we are in a Pluto return and that things have got to change, and we have to be conscious of where we are, because what we do in the next decade is going to drive our country for the next 248 years. And Pluto packs a powerful punch, right? So we need to think very carefully about what message we're sending out to the world. What kind of news and outcome do we want? We want a beautiful, shining, positive outcome for everybody, right? That means that people who are different, we have to have a way for it to work for everybody. So it's like we need to bring the wisdom of true justice down to earth. We need to balance things out in more ways than one, not just in courts of law, but in how we have our society. Right now, it favors the very, very, very rich at the expense of everybody else. And that's creating conditions in our own backyard that look terrifying. It's like the hands are all out there. Everybody wants, everybody needs, but they can't get what they want or need. And so we have people that hack and steal and scam and fraud. But a lot of this is actually happening from people who do already have a lot of money, who are privileged, but just need to steal from others because they need more stuff because their value system is completely wanting. And you can see the wanting. It's like, I want, I want, I want. And they're willing to do anything to get what they want, including sex traffic women, set up murder plots, buy life insurance policies, fake marry people, this kind of stuff, this kind of wanting, this value system. Somehow we need to get where we're educating people away from this. And that might take many layers and multitudes of things, from marketing changes to just teaching people better as children, whatever it takes. But the God we have in this country right now is big money, and it is not serving us well. So we are going to have to draw on our higher consciousness as we move through this period. We need all to draw on God energy to bring good things down to the United States. And if we don't do this consciously and well, we're going to have a hellish 248 years coming up. Now, we've already seen, the attempt to put in the dictator, right? And how that person got in and all the corruption involved in that. And I could tell you from the person who got stuck in the middle of it, it wasn't very much fun. I lost 6 years of my life to hit that damn pause button. Don't frickin' waste it. That's my message to the world. Don't frickin' waste what you did to my family. Come to the table. We need to apply higher wisdom. I'm in the process of forgiving again and again and again. It's like a daily event. Some days I succeed, other days not so much, but I'm working on it more and more. Because we have a beautiful planet, we have a beautiful country, and my heart is filled with gratitude for the good people who I don't even know who stepped forward to help me. Tarot card readers, and I have tried to reach out to some of you, but somebody's still controlling all of my forms of communication. I wrote emails to all the tarot card readers that I listen to regularly to try to get your home address so I could send you money. I can't do it with my phone right now. They're in my phone. They're still in my phone. But I want to gift you. I haven't received any of this stuff that was stolen. I do believe it will come. But still, I'd like to gift you, but I can't use Cash App. So I'll try again sending out emails. Please respond. You can send me something to my P.O. box, and then I'll send you something back. But I have an attitude of gratitude for the many people who helped, right? I had one guy, I'll never know who he is, early on in this. He put up a tarot card reading, and the little card said, "Still need help?" That person probably saved my life. You never know what small acts of kindness will do in the world, right? So right along with the horrors that I've been through, I've seen beautiful things. So I know we still have a good and loving and decent spirit in our country from all directions. Good and decent Christians, good and decent Muslims, good and decent Buddhists, astrologers. We have good people in all areas, Jewish people, right? We need to draw on the wisdom from all faith systems to help forge this bright, beautiful future, right? Recognizing that even the smallest things you do can make the most huge difference in a person's life. Likewise, when you work in the opposite direction, when you make keys to a person's house or come in and wire their shower, you need to be conscious of what you're doing to a human being, right? We need to change our value system in this country. And the people that took suitcases of money, or the lawyer that profited off of all that, I can't imagine what you're going to have to face when you go to the pearly gates. But we have the ability to transform this greed, this corruption, this indecency, and find a way that we can honor all people in this country, not one group subsuming another, not one group forcing everything on another. We need to find a way that works for a multicultural country with different belief systems, paths to the divine, etc., so that we can birth into fruition this beautiful new world, right? We can use all the power and energy that we have within us as spiritual beings to soar like an eagle once again. We can reach the mountaintop. We can become a decent country once again. But these things will not happen until we revisit and reevaluate our value system so that we are honoring human beings and life above things like big business and suitcases of money. I hit that pause button for a reason, folks. Don't waste it. And to the person who sent the card, who said, still need help? Yes, I did. And thank you very, very much. I hope I get to meet you and my divine counterpart soon. And yes, I still have things that I'm going to be healing. They may take me the rest of my life, some of the stuff I've been through. And yet I'm overcoming every single day. And I intend fully to overcome. Why? Because I sense the evil forces afoot. When people's their whole intention is, I just want to see you fail, or I just want to stab you in the back because I can, or I don't want you to do well because I don't get the same thing you got. Well, one, I haven't gotten anything, and two, I've put in 6 years of turmoil. And to be truthful, the money isn't, I'll find a good use for it, right? But the money is the least of the things. It's my concern over where we are as a nation and what we're doing to humans. That's my concern, and the way we're living our lives, and what we're teaching our kids, right? Teaching our kids this sociopathy and scams and things like that's a living. This is the kind of stuff that we got to clean up, right? And we may have a different approach of how we do that, and we're probably not going to agree on that approach. But we need to come up with it, however we do that in each one of our territories. And we most certainly need to find a way to honor women better. But to all the good men who helped me, right? FBI, good police, decent people, detectives, everybody, thank you. And to the ones that are struggling, who are upside down in the corrupt system, who took suitcases of money, well, these videos are going to be hard for you. But you're going to eventually get the message I'm saying, and I'm hoping you'll come around and recognize that you're living in the land of the lost. Join the light, folks. We need to birth a new nation, and we need to do it together, consciously, and soon. God bless.